Okay, so we're gonna talk about fucking sh5 and what you should do on a split layout, right? So let's say you've got a fucking big room over here, and you've got, say, one of the other rooms over here. Let's say antenna beetle is here or here first. And you can't use the gauge until it's dead. So obviously the first thing you always have to do on this floor is kill the antenna beetle. And if you want to, like, you know, fan your dudes out over here and search on the way to this one, then, you know, whatever. But let's say that the dwarf that has the marble is like here, right? So the way that this floor goes normally is you run over here. Well, maybe you searched this shit, maybe you didn't. You kill this guy, and while this guy is dying, you keep your whites or whatever, and you start fanning out and searching like all over here while it's dying. And then you search over here, you see a dude drop right here, and you kill him, and then it has the marble, and then it's smooth sailing. Let's undo all this bullshit. But let's say it's here, and the dwarf is like all the way over here, right? So conventional play in the past is you'd run over here, kill this guy, search all the way over here, and then you'd search the room before you leave. And then you're like, okay, it's not here, I got unlucky, we're gonna have to go all the way over here, and then we find it with the gauge. Because now we have the gauge. We couldn't have determined that it was in this room before killing this guy. Right? So like you have no information on where the dwarf is before this guy's dead. So normally in the past that would be considered, you know, you just got unlucky, you had to go over here, get this guy after, you know. But what people have been doing is you see this guy over here off the come down. What people would do now is you dismiss at spawn, you have purples and reds, and you take those guys over here with one captain, and then you have your whites, and you take them over here with the other captain to kill the dwarf. Right? And so in theory, it's like, okay, you didn't have to walk all the way back over here to get this guy after killing the antenna beetle, right? So it should be faster play. But the issue is, you see this guy over here, you don't know if this guy's over here, or if he's over here, or here, or here, or here, or anywhere in here, or anywhere in here, or anywhere in here. Right? So like you spawn in on the floor, and you see this guy here, you don't know where the dwarf is. So you have to make a judgment call on what you're going to do to play this floor. So my whole point with this is that even if the dwarf is somewhere in here and you have to go over there, you should still go this way first with your whole squad, right? Because while this beetle's dying, there's nothing you can really do to speed up it dying, right? Besides, you know, obviously put more Pikmin on it, but you don't want to put all your Pikmin on it because you haven't found the marble yet. Unless it was like over here, in which case, you know. When it's like right here, then the whole thing kind of like, the whole like theory kind of like disappears, because then it's like, obviously by then you know what to do because you found the thing you need the gauge for before you had access to the gauge. So it's like, you know, we completely ignore that situation. Except for the fact that if you dismissed at spawn and it was here, then you just completely misplayed and you just lost like 7 seconds or whatever, more than that maybe, because if you left all your whites over here and you don't have your whites for the antenna beetle treasure. So all your whites are here, you gotta bring them all the way over here to speed this up. Now you just lost like a bunch of time. So in this case, the dismiss is just bad. So let's say that the beetle is here and then the marble's like here. Then the dismiss at spawn is doubly bad because you have all your whites over here and you have 2 treasures that need whites to be sped up. So now it's doubly bad that you dismissed at spawn. So let's say that the antenna beetle's here and the dwarf is like in here and you dismissed at spawn. Right? No, actually we're going to cover the other one first. Let's say the dwarf, like, because these hallways here have like spawn points pretty deep in them and it's not really worth checking that deep on the way in. Let's say the dwarf that had the treasure was like here and you dismissed at spawn. So you bring reds, you get the right colors, reds, purples, and then you brought them over here. And you don't, by the way, have that many Pikmin to check as deep in here if you wanted to even check in here. Because now you have like 40 Pikmin instead of 60 Pikmin, right? So you can't go as far in with your C-sticking. And it's hard to even say that C-sticking in here is what is the best option, because ideally you want to be holding a purple on the way in to nail this guy with a purple. Because you don't want to get all the way over here and then have to stand back and swap to a purple, and the purples are like back here and being slow. So you want to hold a purple on the way in, so you can't really C-stick in here much, if at all. And you would get to like here maybe if you tried to do it, so you still wouldn't see this guy. So you would kill him, and then you would swap back, and you would have like 2 or 3 seconds while he's dying where you have no access to the gauge. So you'd swap back, that takes 1.5 seconds. You're like here, there's still 1 second left. You're like here, and it's done. And when you're like here, if there's an alcove like over here and the dwarf is like there, then you need to be like in here before the gauge is reacting. So you need to be walking for another like second or 2 even, before you can completely rule out this room from having the dwarf. Right? Because like the whole point is that if you do this split and you come here with your second captain and the gauge is dead, then you know the dwarf's in here and you switch back. But then the problem with that, if the dwarf wasn't in here, like let's say it was over here, is that now you're in the middle of this room with all your whites. And let's say that there was like a dummy dwarf here or whatever, and you had to like walk away from that so you didn't lose whites. Now you're losing even more time because you have to walk away from them so you don't lose all your whites. Or you'd probably walk this way actually and use your whites for this. Whatever. It still would be horrible because you'd have to go all the way back over here, and then the whistle would be like in the middle of the room. So you'd have to be pretty on point with your gauge read to check this. You'd probably have to go like deep into here to make sure that the dwarf wasn't like all the way in here. Because the marble isn't going to be, or not the marble, the whistle isn't going to be that far away. Because you don't have any whites in here. Like you're only putting like reds and purples on this. Also, this play is completely forfeiting this body. Like, you're just never getting this body if you're playing like this, and that's 5 Pokos. So you're just never getting those. But yeah, let's say the whistle's here. You've determined it's not in here, the marble that is. So now you have to switch back here, waste another 1.5 seconds. You have to check in here, and then you have to go back in here and make a gauge read on whether it could be down here, and then you have to go back. The whistle's going to be like here, so now gauge reading this whole line is like very, very hard. So you have to just make a guess. Let's say you go this way, it's not here, you have to go back here, and then you finally realize it's here, and then you have to kill it, and then you don't have your whites for it. So you have to take your whites and go all the way back and speed it up, and then still get to the hole in time. So if it's like this, then in this whole play that you just did with dismissing just sucks. It's like horrible. And it's like the worst fucking thing that you could imagine on this floor. And for what benefit? Let's look at the benefit, right? Let's say the layout looks like this. You dismiss at spawn. You leave your whites and a captain. You have your reds and your purples with your other captain. You take your reds and your purples in here. You kill this guy immediately. You switch back while it's dying. Take your whites in here. Get this. This thing, this marble, is now moving at Mach speed because you put 20 whites on it. And the whistle is going to be like here. So now you have to have your captain at spawn, take all your whites over to the whistle, speed it up. Ideally, you wouldn't be stopping it except for, you know, the little time where the whites are grabbing on. Like if you're whistling off, because you have 20 whites to speed it up with, ideally you wouldn't whistle off enough Pikmin to completely stop it. Like you would just whistle some off and then put some whites on, which also means you're not utilizing all 20 whites for the slowest thing, by the way. So then you speed this up, and then you still have to get to the hole. So if the hole's over here, then sure, you have a captain here, you still get to the hole. Let's say the hole's over here. Then you're just completely screwed with this. Because then you have to walk back, you're going to be like here by the time the whistle gets in. And then you have to go all the way over here. Or let's say it was like a meme corridor and it was like all the way over here or something. Then you'd just be like, and you'd lose a million years. So that would just completely suck as well. Like it's not even good. Oh, and whereas if the hole were over here and you didn't dismiss at spawn, then you would just like whistle switch or whatever while you're checking these spawn points. Like before you leave the room, you'd leave a captain here, obviously, if you didn't split at spawn. Okay, so let's say it's the same layout, but you don't split at spawn. You just take everyone in here, pop like maybe you check a little bit here with C-sticking on the way. If the dwarf's over here, then it wouldn't matter. And you wouldn't be able to check this deep into the shit anyway. But yeah, let's say you come in here, you pop a purple on this guy immediately, you C-stick reds or whatever onto him to kill him, and then you start C-sticking your whites like all around here. Like you'd get like all the way around like this way by the time he's dead. And then if he's not in here, you'd see that by the time he dies because the gauge would indicate that. And then let's say the hole is like this way. You just leave a captain here before you leave. The whistle would be like here by the time you're getting out. So you have your other captain with your whites and your leftover Pikmin. You'd come in here, you'd search this. Whistle would be like here or whatever. So you'd get the search here, immediately go over here, search this. Whistle would be like here. Come back. You'd get to like here or whatever by the time the whistle gets in. And then you come over here, kill this guy, get all your whites on that. And then switch and take your other captain to the hole. The marble would be like here or whatever. Somewhere in here with all 20 whites on it. And then you'd have like 5 seconds of downtime or whatever while waiting for that. Right? So that situation, the floor is like 130 to 140 or whatever. So obviously not great still. But in my opinion, this kind of scenario where you go to this first and the marble's not in here at all and you have to go all the way over here is still much better than when you dismiss at spawn and leave all your whites. Because, like I said, if you dismiss at spawn and leave all your whites, then this thing is like in well before the whistle. The whistle would be like here by the time this gets in. And then you have to speed it up. And then if the hole's here, then that plays like horrendous and you're screwed. If the hole's like over here, then it's fine. So I say all of this to say that people have been doing the dismiss at spawn in case of this scenario, right? Where the antenna beetle is one way and the dwarf with the marbles the other way, which you have no way of knowing off spawn, by the way. There's no way to know that this is here because the gauge can't be used because the antenna beetle. I say all of this to say that I think that doing this, going here, and then going here, and then this gets in, and then the whistle's like here, and then taking your whites and speeding this up, is like way worse on average. Like in this specific scenario, it loses like the least amount of time that it could have lost compared to if the marble were like here or here or here. This is the one where it really sucks. Or like here or here or here or here, even like even if it's right here. Like it's better to dismiss if it's in this far one compared to this close one even. Like the marble being all the way over here is the one where you get the most benefit out of dismissing, and it's still like not even that much better compared to not splitting at spawn. And if the marble isn't there, then it's way worse compared to just taking your whole squad this way. And then while this guy's dying, you check spawn points, he's dead, so you correct carries or whatever, get the body if you want, check spawn points, leave, check spawn points. You've checked this whole room now with all your Pikmin. And so if the marble is anywhere in here, or here, or here, or anywhere in here, then you just saved yourself a bunch of time compared to if it's anywhere in here, right? And now let's go pull up Cave Gen, right? So maybe you're looking at this and you're like, okay, Curtis, surely there's a pretty equal weighting of spawn points. I need to do cave info, I'm done. So let's take a look at this. And let's zoom in. This guy drops... Let me see how to read this, actually. I don't look at cave info a whole lot. I think it's the red ones, if I'm reading it right. Because I think the red are these hard techie spawns. So let's count how many is in each room, right? So in this room here, on the paint example, where are we? Over here. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 places where it can be, not counting alcoves. I think the math kind of gets a little weird when you factor in alcoves. And then, so how many did I say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Over here you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 before you factor in alcoves. And the alcoves off of this room often go out to like here. So you have a bunch of shit in these hallways that could also have the thing. Because on these, the alcoves generally aren't that long. Like, you might get like a 1 if you get like an egregious example, but it's typically not going to be in alcoves off of this room. So basically, let's say that the antenna beetle is like here, and the spawn room's like down here at the bottom. You come in here with your whole squad. You can check all this space while it's dying and while you're waiting for the gauge to come back. And you've already checked some of this, like all this space in here you've checked by now. Ideally, one of these two ends, like whichever one is like on the way to the antenna beetle more. Kind of depends. But you have all this space to check if you go here first with your whole squad. So, like, if you ask me, I think splitting at spawn is just objectively worse compared to just going here first with everyone. it's also like dismissing is just playing for the worst scenario. Like, even if you get unlucky and it's over here, like, we've already discussed that it's like about the same-ish, give or take like a few little seconds. Like, if you get unlucky, then sure, dismissing is like fine. But this is like, let's take a look at the room again and see exactly how many spawn points that is. Obviously, it depends on like which way the room's oriented, but it'd have to be like here. If the spawn, let's say the spawn's over here, it'd have to be like here or here. If the spawn's like down here, it'd have to be here or here. Let's say it's like here. You've got like these two in the end, and I don't think it's pretty rare that it ever connects like this, I think. But even then, you've got like 2, maybe 3 spawn points on either end. So basically, you're gambling the whole play with this dismiss on like 3 spawn points, as opposed to like this whole thing where these hallways can also have spawn points. This is like 14, 15, 16, whatever spawn points in this whole room. Obviously, one of them is going to be the antenna beetle. So let's say on average it's like 14. So you're gambling the whole play on it being like 2 or 3 spawn points, when you could have just taken everyone and gambled the whole play on it being like 13 of them. So you tell me which one's going to be better on average. Okay, this was my whole rant on this play, because I've seen people doing this, because IID, I think, tried it out. I think the reason why IID probably has been trying it out is because he, like, if I had to make a hard judgment, obviously nobody's really asked him about this, but what I'm assuming is the case is that he hasn't played Pikmin 2 for a while. Like, he just recently came back to doing Payoff Debt attempts. And it's also been a minute since he's done Payoff Debt specifically in Pikmin 2, as opposed to another category. So he probably was just trying to like come up with a new like way to play this floor that feels good to him. Which, like, experimentation is never a bad thing, but I've seen people like doing this play, this split at spawn play here, and just arguing in favor of it as if it's better, and I'm here to say that I think it's just objectively worse. So yeah, that's going to be it from me and my rambling.